News coming in of Prime Minister Narendra Modi visiting LK Advani on his birthday. You can see the visuals of Prime Minister Narendra Modi at LK Advani's house, greeting him with that floral bouquet. You can see that he is inside LK Advani's house at the moment. Prime Minister Modi extending birthday greetings to senior BJP leader and former Deputy Prime Minister LK Advani. He's also put out a tweet. In fact, LK Advani has turned 94 today. Many other union ministers have also extended greetings on this particular occasion. LK Advani's 94th birthday, rather very special, with the Prime Minister visiting his residence, and these are visuals that are coming in from inside the residence of LK Advani. A mentor, guide and margdarshak to the Prime Minister, LK Advani celebrates his birthday today. It is his 94th birthday. Rahul Srivastav, our National Affairs Editor, is now joining us on the phone line. Rahul, we're getting these inside visuals coming in from LK Advani's house. Rather heartwarming visuals coming in as LK Advani celebrates his 94th birthday today.
Kathy, this is a political signal being sent by the Prime Minister. Remember that right since 2001, when Narendra Modi became Prime Minister, LK Advani was the mentor and Narendra Modi was a protege. And in fact, after the Gujarat riot, when there was things churning against Narendra Modi, vis-a-vis Prime Minister at that time, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, it was LK Advani who shielded him. This relationship of mentor and protege got started sometime in 2013, when Narendra Modi was initially appointed as a campaign in charge on June 9th in 2013. And LK Advani, it didn't go down very well with him. LK Advani threatened to resign. And after that, in same year in September, when Narendra Modi was anointed as a PM face of the BJP, LK Advani skipped the parliamentary board meeting. And then when Prime Minister Modi came to power, LK Advani, Murli Manohar Joshi and a lot of seniors were relegated to a defunct entity called the Margdarshak Mandal. And right since then, there were notes of disenchantment between the two. But one thing which has happened is that Prime Minister Narendra Modi, over the last few years, almost every year visits LK Advani and sends out a signal that the party has not completely sidelined the veterans of the party like LK Advani, who have helped the party journey from the times in 1984 when the party had just 2 seats. And now today it is in par with over 300 seats in the Lok Sabha. It's a signal also because, remember, LK Advani was the original Hindutva strident face of the BJP and the RSS's political arm. And Narendra Modi wants to keep that legacy alive by keeping LK Advani in place. And remember, LK Advani for a very long time was a member of parliament from Gujarat, which goes to election sometime late next year.
Rahul, but there was always a growing sense of how LK Advani was sidelined from the Bharatiya Janata Party, and this particular visual that is coming in, and look at the optics of it, you're saying it's sending out a very strong political message. How does this now benefit the Bharatiya Janata Party?
It is that always that there are various layers of cadres in a party, and especially like BJP, which has got a strong organizational base vis-a-vis the RSS. Even the fact that there might be several veterans who might not be very happy with the idea of people like LK Advani, Murli Manohar Joshi, Shanta Kumar, and others getting sidelined. These are olive branches to those cadres. Remember, on the ground, everybody counts. And the party, which is heading for 7 crucial state assembly elections, needs every vote and every cadre support. And that is why these are political gestures. These are Kodak moments created and sent out as political signals to everybody that see the party in the party. If there is a rise of a leader like Narendra Modi, the old-timers have not been completely forgotten. There is still a sense of relevance of them in terms of the value of their legacy, at least, being maintained by visits like this by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, several ministers in the government congratulating LK Advani. It is not perhaps an attempt to show that they are politically completely irrelevant. That's what the idea is, that the party is taking everybody along today in its stride to remain in more elections.
Absolutely. Also tell us a little more about the symbiotic kind of relationship that is shared by Prime Minister Narendra Modi and LK Advani, and how that how Modi helped Advani win an election while Advani helped Modi remain as the Chief Minister of Gujarat.
You see, both of them have had a wonderful relationship. I have followed this relationship for a very long time, sometime in 1990 when Narendra Modi at Somnath held a press conference nearly 10 days before LK Advani started his famous Ram Rath Yatra for the Ram Temple at Ayodhya. And in fact, in the initial days of the Rath Yatra, Narendra Modi was the charioteer of LK Advani's Rath. And wherever we can say that the rise of LK Advani within the ranks of the BJP and as a strident face of Hindutva also led to somebody like Narendra Modi, who was a pracharak, full-time pracharak within the RSS, and in fact can be said is one of the most successful ever full-time pracharaks of the RSS to have become the Chief Minister and today Prime Minister for a second term and making a strong bid perhaps for 2024. And Narendra Modi owes a lot of his political rise to LK Advani. That's what I said is that in 2002, when there were riots in Gujarat, and at that time, the relationship between then Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee and Narendra Modi was showing signs of strain. And when asked about the riots, there was a famous for the BJP comment by Atal Bihari Vajpayee, in which said he talked about the Raj Dharma not being followed by the Chief Minister, and that perhaps applied so much of pressure on Narendra Modi, the newly inducted Chief Minister, the Pracharak turned Chief Minister, that there was a question mark whether after the comment by the Prime Minister like Atal Bihari Vajpayee, one of the biggest faces of the BJP and the RSS, can Narendra Modi continue? And at that time, it was LK Advani who reached out and shielded Narendra Modi. And that created what you call that symbiotic relationship in which both were seen as mentor and protege. Sometime in 2011, in fact, things started turning problematic as LK Advani saw that there was a rise of a Narendra Modi and as a strident Hindutva face. And there were after that events like LK Advani wanting to start a yatra from Gujarat, which was not allowed by Narendra Modi because he was starting his own Vivekananda yatra. And LK Advani, in fact, took the yatra to Sitab Diyara, which is on the border of UP and Bihar in Balia, the residence of Jayaprakash, birthplace of Jayaprakash Narayan, and had Nitish Kumar, a Betenua of Narendra Modi, to flag the yatra. And though he was part of the NDA, of course, at that time. And that perhaps led to worsening of the relationships between the two, which culminated in leaders like LK Advani, Murli Manohar Joshi being put into a virtually defunct entity like the Margdarshak Mandal of the BJP in 2014, in which they were removed from the parliamentary board, which is the top decision-making body. But one has seen a certain degree of thawing as things have changed. I think it is also because LK Advani, who had threatened to resign on the 10th of June 2013, as Narendra Modi was elevated to be the face of the BJP, that there was souring of relationships. But since then, I think LK Advani also has realized that there is no point in resisting a political force like Narendra Modi. Now, given the fact that there has been a withdrawal by LK Advani also, somewhere I think now both the sides are planning to put out a show of unity, that the mentor-protege relationship is more or less back, if not in the same form as earlier.
That's very interesting to note, and that's a very strong insight that you bring to the fore, Rahul. In fact, if you could tell us a little more about LK Advani's political opportunity to become the Prime Minister that really got marred. He was really the natural heir, but it was then the Prime Minister who took over, and hence, as you mentioned, the relationship also turned sour. There was a sidelining of LK Advani that was being witnessed in the BJP too, and now they are coming together, showing this kind of bonhomie, and as you rightly pointed out, this optics would augur well for the Bharatiya Janata Party.
Jyoti, remember that LK Advani was, along with Atal Bihari Vajpayee, it was an era. It was an era that created, crafted and catapulted the BJP from a two-member in Lok Sabha seat in 1984 after Mrs. Indira Gandhi's assassination. That brought BJP and made it a force. And at the time when Atal Advani duo were working, both the leaders had their own set of leaders under them. They were bringing up leaders. Say, for example, and Arun Jaitley and Sushma Swaraj, Rajnath Singh, and several others were seen the proteges of Atal Bihari Vajpayee. On the other hand, LK Advani was grooming his own set of leaders like Narendra Modi. And that is why, if you recall, sometime in 2013 and others, leaders like Sushma Swaraj and others were not very happy with the idea of the elevation of Narendra Modi because they thought that they were the heir apparent to the Advani legacy. It was in 2009, in fact, when LK Advani got a shot at becoming the Prime Minister, lost the election. And I think at one time there was also the fact that LK Advani was dependent on Narendra Modi to win elections in Gujarat as a Lok Sabha seat from Gandhinagar. And LK Advani was helped in that by Narendra Modi in winning with hefty and respectable margins. That is why somewhere LK Advani, who could not become Prime Minister in 2009, still felt, one, that he could be at a time when the BJP had a chance of coming to power. At that time, he wanted to take a shot. Also, the leaders around him that he had cultivated, like Sushma Swaraj and others, were not very happy with the idea of Narendra Modi's rise to Delhi from Gujarat, or shift from Gujarat to Delhi. And in that came a very acrimonious relationship and factional war within the BJP. Narendra Modi won the election and decimated all the equations, rivalries and equations, by virtually sidelining everybody. Sushma Swaraj was forced to accept the External Affairs Ministry post, and LK Advani was relegated to a defunct entity like the Margdarshak Mandal, which is supposed to be an advisory body, which has never been called. There has been no meeting of that entity ever. And I think after that, all the factional war within the BJP, I will say, in the last 7 years, this Narendra Modi, Amit Shah duo have been able to silence and smother any kind of factional war. It's now a more cohesive entity with the line of chain of command spiraling down from the top, Narendra Modi.
Right. But one can't ever take away from the fact that here is a man, LK Advani, who was the one responsible for scripting the Bharatiya Janata Party, the rise of BJP in India. It was him that it all began with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. See, Chetty, Atal Bihari Vajpayee was the more acceptable political face. He was a very popular leader. But in terms of galvanizing the cadres, and you see, there was RSS, a very strong right-wing organization which talked about Hindutva and several other agendas. But it was LK Advani which brought the BJP closer to the RSS agenda. It was LK Advani who made the RSS agenda the more visible political agenda of the BJP. And if you see the Rath Yatra, the coming together, bringing together of sadhus, saints by BHP and others on the same political platform of the BJP, that created that large Hindu monolith of strident Hindutva. I think that in that LK Advani's role can never be diminished, because he was the person who became the first strident Hindutva political face of right-wing politics in India. Anybody else will be second. Narendra Modi will be the second. LK Advani will always remain the first, though he could not, or perhaps the political climate was not such that he could encash on it and gain that kind of popularity as Narendra Modi has. But LK Advani will have the space in the BJP RSS pantheon as the first Trident political face in the country.
Rahul, why has Mr. Advani been largely silent and quiet on political issues in recent years in the country? I mean, you did mention how electoral success has eluded LK Advani, but the campaign over Ayodhya as well. That is what LK Advani perhaps will go down in history for. But he's been very silent when it comes to political issues in the country.
Yes, Chetty, because you see, LK Advani spoke up since the rise of Narendra Modi as the face of the BJP in 2013, his utterances were negative, and that did not go down very well with the new dispensation which was going to take over the BJP. As I mentioned that on the 10th of June 2013, if I recall rightly, the BJP it was just 1 day old that Narendra Modi was anointed as the campaign face of the BJP in the Marriott Hotel in Goa, when LK Advani fired a letter of resignation to Rajnath Singh. It was a 2-page letter, and he had forecasted at that time that with the rise of Narendra Modi, it will be politically BJP versus the rest, and will polarize the system, and the BJP will not find greater acceptability. And after that, in September, when Narendra Modi was to be appointed as the Prime Ministerial candidate in the Parliamentary Board, LK Advani skipped the Parliamentary Board meeting. Sushma Swaraj and other leaders had to be sent to him, but he refused to come. Then came the Delhi loss, for example, in 2015, the Bihar loss, when LK Advani, leaders like Shanta Kumar, Yashwant Sinha and others fired some very strong notes against Narendra Modi. Then through several blogs, LK Advani had attacked Narendra Modi and the government, and that did not go down very well. But then all this is, a lot of water has flowed down the Yamuna since that time.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Rahul, for that insight right there. Prime Minister